So this is my Infernoid deck. Damn, it's running Infernoids. This is Infernoid. Technically I call it Inferno Lightsworn because Lila's in it. I did have Wolf. I was testing out Wolf, but I took out Wolf mainly because you don't want to have too many dead draws. There already technically could be a considerable amount of dead draws in this deck because of the inherentness of, in order to summon the Infernoid, you gotta banish an Infernoid to summon them, so you can't just normal summon or set them. So I was like, not interested in adding any more dead draws, as it were, into the deck. So I was like, you know what, since Lila is all I really need, I'll just go with Lila. So technically this is just an Infernoid deck. I got YUGIOH. This will let me recycle my Lilas and any of my XYZs, so I can reuse them, since I only use one copy of each XYZ in my extra deck. Also, YUGIOH, if I attack with it, I can send an Infernoid monster from my deck to the graveyard, so I can fill up my graveyard with more Infernoids. It's a level 10. I can use it with Infernoid Nehemov and make a rank 10. I could do number 81 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon, or I can do Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max. So those are my 2 rank 10s I can go into. Especially if I attacked with a lot of my monsters and dealt enough damage, I can just drop YUGIOH main phase 2, go into Gustav Max and detach till 2000 to finish the game. This deck is not specifically to OTK, but it can OTK, because under the right conditions, of course, you know, you can reasoning, get monsters in graveyard, your Infernoids, special summon them, attack, deal a lot of damage, and OTK your opponent. But it's not directly made to OTK, so it's just resource, you know what I mean? You'll just play reasoning to get as many of your Infernoids in the graveyard, use Lila to get as many of your Infernoids in the graveyard, and then start using them wisely. Play them based off of whatever deck you're going up against. You know, if you're going up against a trap heavy deck, I recommend Infernoid Bale. He has a different name in the TCG, but Infernoid Bale, Astaroth, of course Lila. Use the bait dolls, MST, or whatever, if you like Night Beam, whatever your choice is. Right there you see I have 15 cards right there in the main deck that can deal with traps, you know, back row heavy cards, back row heavy decks. So you'll play those cards specifically. But if your opponent just playing monsters and whatnot, obviously you can just throw down, you know, your beaters. Nice little 2800 beater. It kills a monster. It can attack again afterwards. So it's kind of like BLS. Now if they had a fire type honest, GG, right? OTKs for days. But yeah, nice little beater. 3000 beater, and then since he's level 10 with YUGIOH, can let you go into Gustav Max to do some burn damage. We're at a 3200 rail cannon, which could be immune to any other card effects, so that's really good. And then this is just another little beater. It's decent, especially against a monster heavy deck, because when you deal better damage to this monster, your opponent, you can send one random card from opponent's hand to the graveyard. So you select one card from the hand, send it to the graveyard. So that could reduce the number of monsters they have in their hands, resources as it were, that they can use. Astaroth is level 4, so him and Lila allows you to go into some rank 4s. And we got a couple options. We got Lavalvo Chain, of course, so that we can get more Infernoids in the graveyard, especially specific ones that you need depending on what deck you're going up against. Let's go do the Infernoid's effects. This has the effect that when this card is special summoned, you can destroy all other monsters on the field, so that's very useful. You know, it comes in handy in case you need that ability to wipe out your opponent's monster lineup. You can special summon him and then just wipe them out. That's an option, so you don't have to do it. You could just summon him and just use him for regular battle, or you can actually activate his effect. Then he has a effect that during either player's turn, when a spell trap or spell trap effect is activated, you contribute one monster to negate the activation. If you do, banish it. So it's really good. It's a good way of countering some pretty nasty spells and traps that you don't want your opponent to use, like Dark Hole, Mirror Force, stuff like that, Deep Prison. And he contributes himself for the effect, so that's useful. Then we got Adra-Melech. Here's a different name of the TCG. His effect is during the damage step, if this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle sends it to the graveyard, it can make a second attack in a row. So that's pretty useful. And it says during the damage step, so I wonder if that will prevent like Deep Prison, Mirror Force, stuff like that, right? So because it's during the damage step and you can't activate those cards during the damage step. But anyway, it can it can make a second attack. And then it has a once per turn during either player's turn effect. You contribute one monster, then target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it, which is great against graveyard heavy decks. You know, decks that rely on their graveyard. You can just banish their ace cards. So that's very useful, of course. Especially if they're trying to go into like a soul charge play, you can banish the one of the cards in the graveyards that they would have brought back that you didn't want them to bring back. Then we got Infernoid. At the end of the battle phase, if this card attacked an opponent's monster, you can banish one card on the field. That's very useful, because it lets you banish any card, so banishing is a really powerful effect. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you contribute one monster, then target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. Of course, you contribute himself for his own effect. Sometimes I summon him, and somebody tries to bomb us him, I tribute him and banish something in the graveyard so that he doesn't get banished. That way, at least he'll be in the graveyard. I can summon him again if I have two more Infernoids to in my hands or in the graveyard to bring him back. I could just bring him back and continue doing what I'm doing. It's also useful if somebody tries to Deep Prison him. You know, basically any card that would essentially cause him to not be on the field, especially a card that if a card throws him back in the deck, for example, or something like that, I could just tribute him for his effect, and he won't go back in the deck. He'll be in the graveyard where I can use him again. That also applies to Adra-Melech. He could also do the same thing, just like Asmodai could also do the same thing. So Inferno Asmodai's effect is when this attacking card inflicts battle damage to your opponent while battling an opponent's monster, you can send one random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard, and then once per turn during either player's turn, you contribute one monster, then target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. And of course, you contribute himself for that effect. Infernoid Astroth. This card cannot attack the turn you use the effect of once per turn. You can target one spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. So he can essentially MST. He also has the effect that once per turn during your opponent's turn only, you contribute one monster, then target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. And this is a quick effect. So you could chain it to any of your opponent's card effects. Lila, target a spell trap card on your opponent's field, and then this card's battle position is changed. This card's battle position cannot be changed until the end of the next turn. Also change this card. You control from face up attack position to face up defense. If you do, destroy that target. During the end phase of your turn, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. She's here for the ability to destroy back row, stuff like Vanity's Emptiness, if you're Iron Walls, Necro Valley, so forth and so forth, Mirror Force, Deep Prison, whatever. Anything you want to get rid of, she'll get rid of it for you. And then you mill during your end phase 3 cards, which hopefully you're milling only the Infernoids, that way you can use them. Exodios will let you recycle your monsters from your graveyard, put them back into the deck or extra deck. If he's on the field and he was to leave the field, he is banished instead of sent to the graveyard or whatever hand, whatever he's gonna go to. Reasoning: you activate this card, your opponent chooses a level between 1 and 12, or any level between 1 and, let's say, 20 or something, in case they ever create monsters who have levels beyond 12, like a 13 or 14. You get the idea. Anyway, the point is your opponent chooses a monster level, and then you discard the top card of your hand, or you excavate the top cards of your deck until you get to a monster that can be normal summon, and then you special summon that monster if he calls it wrong. But if he calls it right, send it to the graveyard. In this deck, the only monster you can summon by this card effect is Lila, which is a level 4. If they choose level 4, she'll go to graveyard. But if they don't, they choose like level 7 or something, she will summon. Obviously, you want to summon her in attack mode so that we can use her effect to pop back row. And then the rest of the cards in your that you excavated go to the graveyard. So that's how you get your Infernoids to the graveyard faster than what Lila can do. Raythal helps you get rid of back row, plus the fact that it goes back in the deck will help you prevent you decking out, especially if you do a combo where you have a face down spell and you Raythal your own face down spell. That way Raythal goes back in the deck, and whenever you draw the Raythal, you do it again, put it back in the deck, and as long as you're not milling, it won't counteract. Milling will counteract the effect of this. So if you have Lila and you're Raythaling to not deck out, Lila's gonna probably mill the Raythal, so that's counterproductive. The idea is if you don't have Lila on your field milling you every end phase, you can do the Raythal trick to not deck out, which can happen in this deck. This deck is 40 cards, and there's plenty of times where I had 20 cards in the graveyard, so that's half the deck. At any moment I could end up with very little cards in my deck, especially if I drew 2 Lilas, right, and I play Reasoning. That means I only have 1 Lila in the deck, so I'm gonna mill a lot of cards before I get to her. Anyway, MST helps you get rid of anything like Vanity's Emptiness, Necro Valley, Imperial Iron Wall, you know, anything that could potentially hurt your skill drain, so forth and so forth. Roll of the Decree will help you shut down those floodgates, those trap cards. You know, Imperial Iron Wall, Vanity's Emptiness, skill drain, you know, whatever. Mirror Forest, Deep Prison, whatever traps that they might have for you. Burrow from a different dimension is good to help you get the Infernoids you banished back into the graveyard so you can reuse them. Mind Control, so you can steal your opponent's monster after you summon one of your Infernoid monsters, for example. Steal your opponent's monster and then you can do some Exceed plays. Snatch Steal, same concept. Take your opponent's monster, use it as an Exceed material so you can do an Exceed play. But with the difference between Mind Control and Snatch Steal, of course, is Snatch Steal will allow you to attack with a monster, so it makes it a little more versatile. But since it's an equipped card, it can be MST'd, so Mind Control, you know, counteracts that effect. You know, it can't be MST'd, but you can't attack. While Snatch Steal, you can attack, but it can't be MST. So it's all about playing it at the right time. 1 day of peace, just there so you can get an extra draw, but it could potentially help you gain another turn that could be very crucial in case you just need 1 more turn to make a comeback or just to win, and you don't want your opponent to snatch your victory away from you. You can just 1 day of peace. That way they can't just be like, Dark Hole, summon a bunch of monsters, go for game. Soul Charge mainly is to help you get Lila back on the field. You can Exceed play, you can just leave her on the field so you can mill in case you need more milling. Just there, just in case you might be able to bring back, you know, Gustav Max or something, any of your XYZs, bring them back and just use them as a nice little beater. you could, bring back Dracosac, for example. He doesn't need materials in order to use his popping card effect, so you could just activate his effect, tribute him, and pop a card on the field. So he's worth bringing back. Allure Darkness. The main goal with the main use of this is not to use this and then banish an YUGIOH, which is dark, in order to keep the cards you drew. The idea of this is for you to set your cards like spells and traps, right? Make sure you have very little cards or no cards at all in your hands. If you have Infernoids, that's okay. You play Allure, draw 2, then discard your hand. That's the main concept, is just to help you get 2 more cards that you can send to the grave. And more likely there will probably be Infernoids, which is what you want. So that's really what it's there for. But if you're in the scenario where you have an YUGIOH or whatnot, do what you want. But the real reason is in the deck is for you to discard, not really for you to keep what you drew. It's for you to discard. Especially since they're Infernoids, you can special summon back from the graveyard, so it's not a problem. This just helps you get more out of your deck. Then we got charge the Light Brigade, mill top 3 cards, and then add in Lila from your deck to your hand. That's essentially what it's there for, just for more milling. And then you can search out Lila specifically so you can have her to help you pop back row and mill some more cards. So in one turn you can mill 6 cards and pop back row. Lavabo Chain, so you can get either you can add Lila to the top of your deck or YUGIOH to the top of your deck in case you need his effect, or you just want to, but of course typically you're just going to send to the graveyard a Infernoid, since you can summon it from the graveyard by their effects. Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon, because he has a really good ability, so he could be useful to weaken one of your opponent's really strong monsters and then run it over. Crazy Box, in case your opponent got skill drain, you can take advantage of a nice little 3000 beater. Black Shepherd Corn, decent card, is useful against monsters that can't be destroyed by battle card effects, and then you deal damage in the process, so you could just win off of that effect. Number 101 Silent Honor Arc, useful for getting rid of monsters that you don't want to go to the graveyard. You could just snatch them up and turn them into XYZ material and attack directly and whatnot. It only applies for monsters that were special summon and are in attack mode. And if this card would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you could detach a material from it instead. That's pretty good. Rhapsody Berserk just adds more banish capabilities to the deck, so you can banish more cards, plus you can power up your XYZs by 1200 extra attack by equipping it to them. Exciton Knight helps you clear the field, so that way you don't have anything to worry about. You get rid of all your opponent's floodgates or anything that could be problematic, like a field of monsters. You can get rid of them, and then the following turn you can just start summoning your Infernoids and go for game. Sky Blaster helps you get rid of any face-up card that's problematic, that can't be destroyed. Let's say the Silvery Cockles or Beelzebub, the Diabolic Dark Dragon. He can't be destroyed by card effects, so you can use Sky Blaster in that scenario. So it's very useful for getting rid of stuff that ain't easy for you to run over or just can't be destroyed by battle or card effect. You can use this effect instead. Dracosac, detach, make 2 tokens. You can use this effect to tribute a Phantom Beast monster. That means himself or a token. Destroy 1 card on the field, can't attack if he uses either one of those effects. Number 11 Big Eye, detach material. Take control of 1 monster your opponent controls, and he cannot attack if he uses that effect. So So it's useful for stealing some of your opponent's best card monsters and beating him with his own monsters. Felgran, really good monster, 2800. Detach, target one monster on the field. It's unaffected by other card effects. A typical target, you could target himself, so that way he's unaffected by, other card effects. Heliopolis, his effect does not target. You could detach a material, tribute monsters from your hand or field to destroy that many cards on the field. And since his effect doesn't target, it makes him really, really strong. So it's useful against cards that normally have effects that make it where they can't be targeted. You could just pop them with that. We have, of course, Railgun Super Dreadnought. Once per turn, you could detach material from this card, target one face-up monster on the field, and that card is unaffected by other card effects, except for its own card effects, of course. So it's just another Felgran, basically. Get 3200 Felgran, rank 10. Then we got Gustav, max. Detach a material, deal 2000 points of damage to your opponent. And of course, he can still attack the turn he activates the effect. So that makes it extra good. And that's the end of the deck profile.